In around May 2005, I had a young CPL student come to me at the Aero Club that I was instructing at and suggest that he was going to lease an aircraft from down south to build his CPL hours in. And he subsequently did that and headed off down south to pick up that aeroplane. He went down with another Aero Club PPL pilot. They picked up the aeroplane and on receiving it got told that the machine needed to be leaned out at quite low level. It was a common practice at the organisation. They'd recognised that it was running a bit rough at lower altitude and leaning it out fixed the problem. They then headed north on the way back to our base, and on the way found the aircraft was running a little bit rough, and so they decided to stop for fuel and to also do a bit of a logic check on what was wrong. They spoke to someone who they believed was a local engineer who assured them it was probably carburetor icing, and also spoke to a senior instructor at the Aero Club who suggested it may be the same thing. They set off and headed back and arrived back with no further issues. I was back at work the next day after some days off, and the young fella suggested going for a fly, which we did, and sure enough at reasonably low level, about 1500 feet, it needed to be leaned out. The aeroplane then performed fine and there were no further issues. We did what we needed to and headed back to the aerodrome. On arriving back at the aerodrome, we decided to do a touch and go, and when we did the touch and go there was no issue until about 200 feet climbing out. The engine started to run very rough. Due to the fact that there was very light winds and no traffic, I called the tower and said that we'd like to do a dumbbell turn and land back on the runway, which we did. So when we landed, I said to the young fellow there was no chance of any more flying in the machine until it had been thoroughly inspected. It duly went to the engineers who stripped the engine down to have a look and found a piece of hose clamp which was lodged in the carburetor throat itself, and subsequently meant that there wasn't enough air getting in, which is why we had to lean the mixture out. The engineer assured me it was probably a very long shot to get it there in the first place. There was no understanding how it got there, but it had obviously been there for some period of time to cause that rough running. I suppose the lessons to be learned out of this is that over a period of time an organisation had got used to the fact this aircraft was running rough. They hadn't ever thought why it might be running rough. They just came up with an immediate solution which went quite a long way away from what would be normal practice. Unfortunately then that risk then shifted on to the next pilot who went to go and use it, the next operator. And when we went to go and find out what was wrong, it was something that could have been remedied quite quickly with a bit of technical knowledge, just thinking about it logically. What in essence was happening here was that due to the fact that this has been something that's ongoing, it had become normalised within the organisation. They didn't question or challenge it anymore. It was just a standard procedure which was a long way away from normal.